Facebook Live.
That's Pat. Susanna, how can Canadians stand to be so close to such an idiot? But you know, if we shut the borders at the commerce, I can bet for you the government sponsorships and we was a child like this.
So I'm just going to mute you all. And so that there's less background noise. Just a couple of things about Zoom if you're not familiar with it. On the top right-hand corner, you have the options of full screen and gallery view or speaker view. And gallery view lets you see everybody that's on the call. And so, but it may not be all on one page. And speaker view lets you see whoever is speaking at the time. So you may want to click on speaker view. Hi, Liddy. I know you're muted, but hello. And hi. Hi. Nice to see you. And thanks for sharing this with some of the people you know. And some of them are here. One of them is here. And we're going to start in a moment. I was saying it's just for this session tonight, you just need to be comfortable. If you like writing, you could have whatever you use to write with close by. But really this is an opportunity for contemplation and reflection. So also on Zoom at the bottom, there's a chat function. So if there's a question that arises spontaneously while you're muted, which you will be for the first part of our call, then you can click on the chat button. It opens a window and you can type a message there that I will receive. And also after I tell the story tonight, there will be opportunities for you to share any reflections that you have or ask any questions. Hi, Janice, on Facebook. So let's start. And so just for a moment, settle into a good seat. Close your eyes. And let yourself settle and arrive. So one of the great things about this opportunity to connect virtually is that we can do it in the comfort and ease of our own space. And one of the challenges is that our own space has lots of distractions and things going on. So just for a moment, with your eyes closed, let go of all of that. And drop your attention down to your breath. And as you exhale, just scooch around a little bit on your seat so that you feel the weight of your body settle more deeply down. As you inhale next, let the inhale invite an alertness into especially the torso, so that there's a sense of readiness. And then let the exhalation soften the edges of that readiness. So it's an alertness, but without any sense of needing to move or do. Soften the jaw and the eyes. And then with your next exhalation, join your hands together at your heart. And we'll Om once. Exhale completely. Take a deep breath in. Just for a moment, drop your head over, surrendering your head and the limited knowledge of the head to the infinite wisdom of the heart. And then release your hands. Lift your head. Gently open your eyes. So, tonight I'm going to tell a story from the yoga tradition, and mythology as well as contemplation is a key part of the yoga tradition. And the yogic tradition and all wisdom traditions are meant to give us teachings, sometimes in the form of story and sometimes in the form of succinct, short passages that we're meant to work with over time, to contemplate, to take inside us, and to open to the wisdom that we hear in the story and in the teaching. They are not meant to just be engaged with passively. We're meant to reflect on them, we're meant to contemplate them, we're meant to see how they relate to our lives. So when we listen to a story, especially a wisdom story, a myth, the idea is that we open fully and receive the story as completely as possible without necessarily right away needing to decide if we like it or we don't like it, or if we understand it or we don't understand it, to just open as fully and completely as possible to the wisdom and the intent held within the story. As such, as we take in the story, we're asked to see ourselves in each character in the story and in each situation in the story. So rather than thinking of ourselves only as the hero or the heroine, we're also to see ourselves in the anti-hero and in each character and in each experience that is a piece of the story, so that we take in the whole and we see how we can relate to and respond to and fit into each of the characters in the story. Story is a very unique and historically present throughout history as a way of connecting and as a way of relating. And story is an alive entity, just like we are. And so part of the magic of myth is that a myth, even if we've heard it before, never is exactly the same. It's told in a particular way, under certain circumstances, through the lens of the storyteller, through the way that we as listeners are hearing it. And each time the story is told, it's unique to that moment. And so the idea is that there's specific wisdom available to us in each unique telling of the story. And that even if we've heard the story before, which I don't imagine many of you will have, it's not a story I've told before. And so even if we have heard it before, it's like we're hearing it for the first time, because under these circumstances, we are hearing it for the first time. So it has particular relevance for this moment in time. And it's the idea is that it's being told in a way and we're receiving it in a way that is uniquely relevant to right now. This particular time of the year, starting with the new moon, that was today or like last night or whatever, is a festival in the yogic calendar called Navaratri. And it happens in the fall and in the spring, and it's 9 days of celebration of the goddess. In the Indian tradition, there is an understanding that the universal power in the world is personified. It is beyond gender and beyond form, and has distinct but often quite indescribable characteristics. And it's most commonly personified as the feminine, in female form, because it's recognized as having creative force. And the female form has that capacity to create form and bring forward life. So the goddess then is the personification of this universal, ever-present, completely inclusive force in the world. The 9 days of the festival are split up into 3 sections, and each 3 days is a celebration of a particular form of the goddess, because the goddess is this infinite, ever-present, universal force, but she can take on any form and many forms, including the form of each of us. And so the first 3 days are dedicated to the goddess Durga, and Durga is often described as the Great Mother. Her name means impenetrable or invincible, like not able to be moved through. And so she is a great warrior goddess, and this is one of her stories. So each of the gods and goddesses in the yogic collection of gods and goddesses, there's many stories related to them, and this is one. So this is a story of Durga. Once upon a time, a long, long, long time ago, and happening on one dimension of time in this moment, perhaps even inside each of us. And there were 2 yogis, and these yogis were named Shumba and Nishumba. They were brothers, and they were very invested in their yogic practice. And at that time, part of yogic practice was doing these very challenging feats. So, for example, yogis might stand on one leg for as long as possible. These 2 brothers chose to develop their yogic capacity by holding their arms overhead in the sky for as long as possible. So they really worked on their capacity to do that, both physically but more significantly mentally. And they held their arms overhead for eons. Yogic feats like this, successful yogic feats, are, so the tradition says, rewarded. So when we show great commitment and great endurance in our practices, those we are rewarded for that. So these 2 yogis were rewarded by one of the gods, one of the main gods in the collection. His name is Brahma, and he is a creator god, not the goddess, not the universal creative force, but he's a very significant god in the collection. So he notices these 2 brothers holding their arms up for eons, and he decides to reward them. And he says, so what would you like to receive for your efforts? And they said that they would like to receive the the gift of being undefeated in battle. So Brahma thought about that and he said, okay, I agree to give you that reward. However, there always has to be like a little bit of a twist in it. Like you can't be just completely invincible. So Brahma decided to say that they can be defeated by no man or no god. And so the brothers thought like, oh yeah, that seems fine. There doesn't seem to be much of a loophole there. So they were like, okay, great. So as a consequence of their efforts and now this gift, they became great rulers in the kingdom. And like many great rulers, they start off with very pure intentions to rule well and to not let the power and the position that they have influence their decisions. And yet over time, that capacity to rule with intention and clear direction got a bit clouded, and they started to amass wealth and power and jewels and women and followers and armies, and they got a little carried away with that. So they began to use their power, their armies, their resources to do things that were less yogic and not necessarily for the good of the land. The other gods in the land saw what was happening as these two brothers continued to rule with less grace. And so the gods got together and were like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And I'm like, I don't know. These guys can't be defeated. Like no man, no army, no god even can defeat them. And so they were perplexed and they were struggling to figure out what to do. And a sage, a wise person, came along, and the sage reminded one of the gods, his name is Indra, and the sage reminded Indra that there was a loophole in Brahma's gift. And Indra said, well, what's the loophole? And the sage said, well, these two brothers cannot be defeated by any man or any god, but that leaves space for the goddess. And so the Indra said, well, where's the goddess? And the sage said, the goddess remains hidden until she's needed. And she stays hidden until she's asked to show herself. And the ways that she can be asked to show herself are prayer, meditation, mantra. And so the sage relayed this information to Indra, and Indra said, great, so we need to go find the goddess and ask her if she will come to our assistance. So the goddess had secreted herself in the depths of a mountain far, far away. So the gods led by Indra made their way to this mountain unbeknownst to the brothers, who didn't realize that this was happening in the kingdom. And as they moved and as they came close to the mountain, they began to ask the goddess for her assistance, chant her name, call her forward, invite her help. So the goddess heard the requests, and as the requests intensified and as the need for help became more and more apparent through the fervor of the requests and the intensity of the mantra reciting and the dropping into meditative states by the gods who were, she decided that she would come into form and assist the gods. So as the gods were meditating and chanting and asking for help, the goddess showed herself in the form of a beautiful young woman. And this young woman had blue-black skin that was shining and glistening, even emanating light, it appeared. And she was youthful and able and very beautiful. And the gods were quite mesmerized by her and said, "Who are you?" And she said, "My name is Durga." And they explained to Durga the situation, and she agreed to help them. So she made her way to the palace where the two brothers, Shumba and Nishumba, were installed with their legions of army platoons and all of their resources. And when she came up to the palace, the guards said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm a young woman, and I made a vow when I was really silly and a child, and I made the vow that I would only marry a warrior who could defeat me in battle." And the guards kind of laughed and said, "Well, why are you here?" And she said, "Well, I want to fight Shumba and Nishumba, and then see which one can defeat me in battle, and then I will marry that one." And the guards were like, "Do you know that they can't be defeated?" And she said, I know that, but I want to see which one really can't defeat me, because I've been practicing. I also have skills as a warrior. And so the guards went and told the brothers, and the brothers did not take this very seriously, but they thought, "Oh, I'll just send out a couple of my army men to take care of this young woman." So they sent out a couple of men, and as they did that, Durga drew a sword, and she just waved the sword in front of the army guys, and they dissolved. So the guards saw this, and they went back to the brothers and said, "Well, there's something quite unique about this young woman, because she completely defeated and dissolved the men that you first sent." And so the brothers were like, "Well, okay, but I'm still not going to go. I'm just going to send a larger group." So they sent a captain with a platoon out, and Durga also easily turned them to liquid, dissolved them. And so the guards went back and said, like, "This isn't working." And the brothers were like, "Oh, well, this is still so silly. I'm just going to send out the majority of the army to take care of this woman. I don't need to come yet." And so they send out the army, and I forgot to mention earlier that all of the gods and goddesses in the yogic tradition, they have means of transport. So they're often with an animal or a bird as a means of transport. So Durga, she rides, and is often pictured as a lion. Sometimes it's a tiger, but she rides, let's say a lion in this case. So she rides this beautiful white lion, and so she's on the white lion as she arrives at the palace. And so as the brothers send out the first wave of the armies, the lion opens his mouth and swallows the platoon that the brothers have sent forth. The brothers keep sending out the rest of their army, and as Durga successfully battles it, as she starts to get more and more inundated by these waves of the army platoons, she takes a deep breath and lets out a great roar, and in that roar, another goddess appears. Her name is Kali, and she's fearsome. She's skinny and dark and ferocious, and she takes care of the platoons of the men that are being sent out. As Durga continues to be inundated by ongoing waves, because remember, the brothers have basically taken over the entire kingdom, so they have quite significant resources at their hands, so they keep sending out platoons of warriors to defeat Durga. And as Durga intensifies, she sends out various aspects of herself into other goddesses. So she creates the goddess Tara and sends her into battle, and she creates the goddess Chinnamasta and sends her into battle. She creates the goddess Bhairava Bhairavi, and sends her into battle. She creates Saraswati and sends her into battle. And so all of these goddesses are battling the army and they defeat them. So finally the brothers are like, okay, I have no more resources to send. Now it's going to be me. So they go out and they see this young woman there who's quite beautiful, and they're like, this is it's a little unfair. You said that you wanted to fight us, but you've taken on all of these forms. So now there's many of you in these various forms, and that's not a fair fight, and that's not what you said that you intended at the beginning. And she agreed that she had manifest all these various forms, and so she pulled them all back into herself, and then drew her sword and her club and a mace, and she has a variety of instruments, of weapons, because she has multiple arms, so each arm can hold one of the weapons, and she swirls and she dances in between the brothers, and she defeats the brothers. And as Shumba is defeated and is dying, he looks at her and he sees all of her beauty and the truth of who she is, that she was battling against the forces that had pulled him off track, that had taken him away from the road that he was on, where he had put in initially great with dedication and clarity and intention, and that as he continued to amass power and get elevated in his status, he lost sight of that. And seeing her in these final moments of the battle, in her truth of who she was, and in the clarity of her intention, that she was fighting to restore order to the world that had gotten out of, that had gone into disarray, he realized that, and he smiled a beautiful smile and said, "Ma, Durga." And at that, she pulled him back into her heart, and he dissolved into the center of her heart, which is where we all dissolve when we remember the truth of who we are, and when the forces that pull us off track are released or dissolved, then we are pulled back into the heart, to the center, to the core, to the essence. And in this story, that essence is Durga. So I'd like you to just take a moment to take in the story, the layers of the story, remembering that we are the brothers, we are the gods like Indra, who are concerned and aren't certain of what to do. We're the sage who has the answers, remembers the loopholes, directs. That we are the ones petitioning the goddess to come out of hiding and to assist. That we are Durga herself, with all of her capacities and capabilities. That we are the guards at the palace, uncertain and maybe even unbelieving of who she is. We are the legions of platoons sent to test her, that we are in each of those. That we are the brothers sitting back in the center of the castle, feeling quite protected and safe and undefeatable. that we are the brothers when they go forth, or we're each of the goddesses that come out of Durga and assist her with their various skills and special capacities. We are the brothers when they come out. We are also the ones that dissolve back into Durga when we remember the truth of who we are and what is true and correct and right. And we are, most importantly, Durga herself, with the capacity to dissolve all of the impediments that we come across. So, I'd love to hear how this is landing, and if you have any comments or thoughts. If you're on Facebook Live, you can type it in the chat window. If you're on Zoom, you can unmute yourself, or you can just raise your hand, and hopefully I will see it, but it might be more appropriate if you just unmute yourself. Any thoughts or resonances? Questions?
I have a question, Marianne.
Marianne, yes.
Is these 3 days, is it Navaratri? Is that
Navaratri?
So this is Navaratri.
Yeah.
So this is a time for Durga energy. I mean, you're describing the energy of Durga.
Exactly.
And that energy, there's a lot of obstacles. It just seems like there's going to be 3 days of this, right? We're in this energy. So what we might be feeling is obstacles, or like, how do we map this? And I understand the character. I have a visual which I can put up. I downloaded one because I wanted to see what she looked like.
Uh-huh.
And I can share that if you want. But I feel, I mean, personally, if I bring it to me, I feel like today I felt obstacles, and I had to stop myself and just center and just, breathe in and just, that's it. I mean, and have compassion for the obstacles, which, as you were saying, like, put yourself in them all, so you can take on the various perspectives. If we're listening to Legault and Trudeau, and reading La Presse and all the restrictions, and my 95-year-old mother that's living with me. I mean, it's just like, there seems to be all these, like, can't go there, can't do this, like, the obstacles,
Right.
So that image of Durga with all her tools seemed inspiring to me,
right.
But not to use them.
Right. No, exactly.
That's what I say.
Exactly. So the energy that is available right now, perhaps, like, is the energy of Durga, which is to overcome the obstacles, to see them, but also to recognize that we have the capacity to overcome and how to do that. And, we all have to figure out what that looks like. Certainly, one of the lessons, perhaps, in this story is the invitation to practice, whether we're in the practice of the brothers, where we're holding our arms overhead for eons, which, when we're in a constricted situation like we're in right now, it might feel like we're holding our arms over our head for eons. And so how do we tap into the endurance and the reserve and the intensity that we need to do that. And then also how we call forth the energy that's within each of us to overcome obstacles. And this story says that we call that forth through meditation and mantra and prayer and asking for that to be revealed, right? Like what the ways that we overcome the obstacles is also within us, and that we ask that to come forth. We call it forth in some way through our practices. So there might be forces, obstacles in the world. I mean, that's clear, right? We're in a time of constriction. And so the story is also asking us to look at what are the resources, what are the weapons, for lack of a better word, resources that we have at our disposal that we can use to overcome the challenges that we're facing right now.
I like that idea of asking, and the hands up, I forgot about that we might have been very, very comfortable, and this came blindside us.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Linda, would you like, you're not muted.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Well, I'll tell you what I got out of it a little bit. I mean, I've never done this type of exercise, so I don't know if I'm making sense what I say, but basically what I got out of it is that all the good things that we do and that we are can easily be forgotten in our busy lives. You know, as many characteristics that we have, eventually, you know, we can just get so, you know, bustled up in our own life, and we can become more selfish and greedy and just want more and more, until one day, you know, we're either no longer happy or things change, and through some type of external force or somebody you meet on the street or something, you realize that you know, you haven't been going down the right path and you've been wrong. So then you realize this, and then you start being good and giving back and being helpful to people again as you originally were, and basically taken back to, like, into the womb, you know, like when you melt back into the goddess's heart. And then after you talking again just now, you know, if you want to relate it to today and the environment we're in, you know, we realize how lucky we were in a world where, you know, we have so many liberties and freedoms, but yet we're still so busy with, you know, success and continuing to acquire and continuing to want more and more and do things and be so busy, and we don't realize the little things until some coronavirus thing like this puts us back in our homes, and we realize like there's a lot of things we haven't been doing, whether it's you know, doing seminars or little things like we're doing right now tonight, you know. I don't think I'd be doing this if it wasn't for not being able to go to yoga and the gym and all these other things that I usually do, and I thought I'd find something to do, so this is what I'm doing, you know.
Yeah.
So that's another way of going back to the basics of not running around to external forces, but, you know, looking within, and some more simple ways of, you know, interacting in this new world that we're going to be in for a little while.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Beautiful. Beautiful summary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mona. It's
Hello.
Nadia.
Yes.
I have been talking and texting and emailing all day. So my first reaction was one to say thank you very much, good night. I felt very calm. The story's not necessarily calming, but could be. I felt very calm, and I just felt like I had the privilege of having a lovely bedtime story, and I was just going to go and do some yoga nidra and go to bed.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
So it's interesting. So I'm reflecting on the choice that we made, Lawrence and I, to do your online, the immersion course. I'm going to make a plug for the immersion course. It's interesting that you chose this moment, to start it. So it was like, it just felt natural to go into this, because in a way, it's true. In a way, if everything wasn't going on at this point, would I be here? I don't know. But I realized that I made a choice and had the intention to join the immersion, the course in the first place, to start something. I obviously didn't know that something was going to happen. But it's almost like, I don't know, it was a choice to do the course, and now a choice to continue to do this. It just flows one into the other.
Yes.
And I believe that crisis is opportunity. That's kind of the business I'm in. Crisis is opportunity. So how to make this an opportunity.
Exactly.
So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I'm glad that it was calming and settling, because I know life for you is not that right now. So that's great. Lovely. I think that there is lots of opportunity in this time.
I think I realized, because I've done a lot of sort of work in different crises. I was very involved in the Dawson shooting and the response to the Dawson shooting. And this is such another order of magnitude.
Nadia works in the hospital.
It's just such another order of magnitude.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. And sometimes we need that level of intensity to help us remember and to call us toward what is most important and what our deeper intentions are, and what practices are useful for us and helpful, and that take care of us and move us back toward the heart, right? Pull us back into that embrace. Yeah, thank you, Nadia. Yes, Liddy? You're unmuted.
I think it's interesting that the goddess is hidden, and that we have to call her out. We have to invite her, invoke her in various and assorted ways. But the fact is, she's always there. She is always there inside of us.
Exactly.
And this is an opportunity, for us to connect with the goddess parts of ourselves, the inner parts, the deeper, reflective, feminine energies that we all have, whether we're male or female, are there. And somebody mentioned about being home, and home brings that up. Home is something whereby we can just be who we are at home, and we don't have to go out and show who we are in that sort of more God-like way that these two brothers were doing.
Right.
Because certainly there was competition there. There were a lot of things that had infiltrated their practice. And so I think the message is for me and for others too, to, find the goddess within, to know what that is, to remember what that is, to invoke that, to open our hearts, to be compassionate for ourselves and for others. And at the same time, Durga is a warrior.
Yes.
She's pretty heavy duty.
Yes. Very.
So she has a lot of power. I've met Durga before in my life, and she helped me overcome something in my life that I didn't need anymore. And so I know her energy, and so I think we can call on her, to help us overcome our fear, to what it is we need to overcome. We can call on Durga, and well.
Yeah, exactly. So the tradition says that all of the aspects take on the form of these goddesses and the gods, but all of them live within us, and that we can call forth the part that we want to illuminate, practice like the mother bear, making sure that the cubs are safe. So that's a very appropriate energy to pull forth out of each of us right now. Thank you. Kathy?
Hi. I was just thinking as everybody was speaking, and maybe this is coming out of partly because there's a video going around that I saw on Facebook earlier, and it's a beautiful Italian video, and it's the voice of the virus talking to all of us that the virus is there to call us, to make us stop what we've been doing. And so I realized that maybe in some ways the virus is Durga in this situation, because it's everybody in all the world is throwing everything they have at it, and we've all been called out of this fact that we've been getting out of hand with this, that, and the other thing, right? And we're all being called back to then recognize where we've sort of gone astray, and that the virus is now, and so we're all throwing all of our armies and all of our researchers and all of our this, that, and the other thing at it. But it's also inspiring, compelling us to then bring out all these qualities that Lydia was just mentioning, that bringing out all these other qualities and these other feminine energies. And I don't know all the qualities of all the goddesses that you named that came out during the battle, but we are all finding our fierceness and our compassion and our gentleness and our anger and our fear, and working with them and finding our weapons and our resources. And so so I don't know if there's a point beyond that, but
no, yes,
that is,
yes.
That's kind of what I got out of that, and that where a lot of people are seeing that this virus is a good thing, right? We've been told, okay, you don't listen to the fires, you don't listen to the little viruses, you don't listen to this. Okay, we're gonna pull out all the stops. And
yeah, I mean, it is an opportunity, right? As we were saying, and a call to remember what's important and what's important, but also I think it's a call to look at the way that we interact with the world around us and the way that we want to live individually, but also in community. And, is this the way we want to treat each other and the earth and all of those pieces as well?
Right. Which is, I guess, also like the brother who then sees the truth in the end. Like we're finally coming to recognize that truth, and that we can reintegrate ourselves and reintegrate with the greater whole. And even just the idea of Durga bringing him into her heart, or him bring like like that whole idea of immunity is that same idea where we need to integrate with this new message, whatever it is. Which is interesting. I actually just started reading Women Who Run with the Wolves this week, after it's been sitting on my shelf for 20 years. Yeah. And I was just reading today, beautiful moment of synchronicity, how like the wild woman who is that hidden feminine energy is, she lives in the same place as the immune system. And it's the immune system also needs to be called forth with meditation and song and story and ritual and all the things, right?
Yeah, beautiful. I don't remember that from the book, and that's a great link to think of that. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, if you have it and you want to read, it's the very first chapter about singing to the bones.
Oh yeah,
it's really nice.
Yeah, I read it 20 years ago, and I think about it often. It's a great book, so yes, I still have it. Lovely. Thank you. Beautiful. Janice on Facebook wrote that she likes that she's hidden as well, and at this time we're looking within ourselves to find the tools we need to remain calm, like the offerings around yoga, meditation, etc., and we're realizing what the really important things in life are. We don't realize how many tools we have to overcome things until we're actually faced with things like the virus. That's the other point, is that Durga also does pull out these various aspects of herself and recognizes all that is within her when she's in crisis and under attack. And so, we're also pulling out the things, the resources that we already have inside us at this time. Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? Yes. Jennifer?
Yeah. Just a really quick point. I really appreciate everyone's commentary. It's amazing. And I haven't really heard a story in a long time, so thank you. Just what struck me was sort of the chaos of everything, and then that moment of the dissolving of the brother having the awareness as he was dying of remembering his light and remembering who he was, and then dissolving back into her. And there was just this like real still point. It was like such a beautiful sort of like in the chaos, it can alchemize and become something else. And that there was a beauty in the death.
Yes.
And a rebirth and a healing through the death.
Yeah.
Which is what we're all going through right now.
Right.
We're going through a death and a rebirth. And it was that was the energetic moment that really just kind of I woke up this morning, and my intention was to go inward today, to really go inward. And so that this is a perfect story for that.
Yeah,
thank you.
Lovely. Oh, you're very welcome, and that was a beautiful description of that moment, because yes, it was a very beautiful moment in the story of his recognition, and that is like you said, this is a moment where we have that potential to realize and remember the truth.
And awaken and wake up,
exactly,
individually and as, in our prayers as a collective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. That was beautiful. So I'm going to
Am
wrap. Yeah,
I'm
Lawrence?
unmuting.
Yes,
I'm unmuting. I
Lawrence.
have to be very interesting because I am the only male in this group. Okay? And I can hear my daughter going, privileged old white man, as warning signals. But I want to go back to what you said at the very beginning because it's a beautiful story. And I'll start from this point. So why did the male have to die? Why did both have to brothers die? Why did one brother have to die? But if you're taking this as metaphors, to recreate, you have to deal with destruction. So out of destruction comes something new.
Yeah.
I heard the person talk about singing with the bones, and I can't help but say this, that God forbid you do not have the potential to make the antibody to this virus. You can do all the singing you want, but you're not going to produce an antibody to the virus. So you're going to need all these other constructions to help you. So there's many, many layers, I think, to this, as you said.
Yes.
And it's a very interesting story on power and construction and creativity. And again, I'm wondering, why did the goddess have to produce 4 arms? Did she produce 6 arms? Did she produce 8 arms? So if she's producing 8 arms, there is lessons in it. There is a lesson, because now she's unfair. Think about it. She may be in the unfair position and using things. And I think that's very much a lesson about, we're talking about feminine power. There is that, are we talking as a sex role?
Yeah.
A sex assigned behavior? Or are we talking about there's creative forces that are very different creative forces that, should we even be calling it feminine versus masculine versus creative and generative versus a force that is destructive but then creates something also?
Yeah.
And I'm wandering with this, but the final point is we all are every single person in that story.
Exactly.
We are every single person. And I wonder how much did the goddess recognize that in potentially, and I'm using my side, that did she make it a fair fight? And did she use a little bit of excess force in righting a wrong situation as per her perspective and others' perspectives? And would that have been something that she could have done in a slightly less strong way? Mm-hmm. So she could have probably brought the person in without having a death.
Right.
So I'm just throwing this out.
Yes, those are very good points. I want to touch on a couple of them, Lawrence. One, the singing in the bones was just the title of the chapter in the book.
Yes.
So just...
No, but you know where I come from.
Yes, I know.
I've had to deal with this for
medical...
35 years.
Yes, totally.
Pardon?
I totally understand where you come from. I really want to address this idea of feminine and masculine, because the on that kind of ultimate cosmic level, the power has no gender. The creative force has no gender.
Right.
And so various lineages of yoga and various schools of thought around the world conceptualize that universal creative force as male or as female. And that's just so that our mind has something to attach to. It's actually free of gender and free of those kinds of forms and descriptions that we understand. My teachers are in a lineage that describes that force as feminine solely because the feminine form is the regenerative creative form in the world. It holds new life and brings forth new life. So they just choose to put that universal force in a feminine form because the feminine has that capacity to carry and bring forth life. So it's not that, and we don't want to get into that dichotomy between feminine and masculine. It's not about male and female. It's not even about feminine and masculine, and it's certainly not about which sex our body is formed in. This is a universal experience, and we all have Durga inside us as much as we have the brothers inside us. So I just want to clarify that. And then the last point, and then we'll really wrap up for tonight, is that the death is could be seen as the death of the sense of separateness, of the sense of smallness, of the sense of ineffectiveness, of the sense of limitation, the sense of the part of us that wants to, as somebody else talked about, amass wealth on all levels just for the sake of having it, to grab things just for the sake of it. So the yoga tradition, especially certain lineages, says that it does take a lot of force to dissolve or to have us not attach too much to that part of us that is still present and always present, that says like, oh, that's nice, I should have more of that. And, oh, that's not so nice, I don't want any more of that. Or, oh, let's take as much in as possible. And so that kind of wayward part of ourselves and that sense of separateness and the sense of smallness, the tradition says it can be necessary to invoke a fair amount of intensity to shift our mind into the recognition that we are completely part of, not separate from what we see around us, what we feel, and that universal creative force. So we are one with that. We are that. So thank you for your comments, Lawrence. And I'm just going to answer one question from Roots on...
I agree with... Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you.
Good. Roots 3. This recording, because I'm really bad, I keep meaning to record the Zoom calls and then I forget. But I'm also doing it on Facebook Live. So if you go to Mona Ketty Yoga on Facebook, then you can find the live video there and you can rewatch it and catch the first part of the story that you missed. And if that doesn't work, I think there might be a way for me to pull that off of Facebook and send it to you in some other way. So you can let me know if that's a better option for you. So we're going to close here. I thank you so much for your participation, for your shares, for your insight, for our connection at this time. I feel a distinct opportunity to connect with all of you through this in this way at this time. So thank you so much for that. And we have 8 more days coming. So feel free to join in for any other part of that. So just for a moment, sit again and close your eyes. And feel into the center of you, the heart of you. And recognize that the essence of you, the essence of each of us, the universal essence, always pulls us back in with a loving embrace, and that any moment of concern, of upset, of joy can find solace and rest back into the center of us. And that all of our practices, contemplation like this, the movement practice, the yogic movement practice, meditation, mantra repetition, prayer, pull us back into the center of our heart. And knowing that that resource is always present, join your hands together at your heart. We'll close with one Om. Inhale. And bow your head for a moment over to the infinite wisdom of the heart. And then release your hands down. Lift your head up. I will unmute you all just to say goodnight and thank you. So have a lovely evening and see you soon. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Mona.
Thank you.
Tomorrow's more of a yoga class, right?
Tomorrow is a yoga class, yes. So you need a mat.
Thank you, Mona.
And we'll take aspects of Durga and